What's going on, everyone? Lalit here. Credit is a pretty interesting subject, and as someone having 30 plus credit cards, I can relate. I've gone through the ringer regarding credit, approvals, and the whole 9 yards. So today, we'll be talking about how you can get that 850 credit score. And with that, let's get straight into it. I think one of the best ways to explain credit and credit score is to understand what comprises of it. What makes up a credit score? How is it determined? And as we walk through these factors, more importantly, I'd like you to focus on as if I'm asking you for credit. And so relating these factors and the fact that I'm asking you, I think the picture will paint itself and hopefully you will be on that road to getting that 850. There's 6 factors that are taken into consideration regarding credit score. And so we'll go through them and I'll start off with the most important to the least important, but they all have some weightage in what comprises of the overall credit score. Starting off with the most important, it's credit card utilization. So what does this mean? It means basically how much of your credit line did you utilize. So for example, if you have $10,000 of credit line, and let's just say for this example, you have one credit card. If you max that out to $10,000, you're utilizing 100% of your credit. If you use 5K of the 10K, that's 50%, so on and so forth. Depending on the percentage of your credit card utilization, there are certain bands in terms of kind of a rating that's given to it. And so it goes from excellent, very good, good, poor, and very poor. And these percentages, I'll put them on screen. We started off with the example of having one card, but now let's just say you have 10 cards with each of them having a limit of $1,000 arbitrarily. And so your total credit line is actually $10,000. And so if you utilize 10,000, aka max out every single card, that's 100%. And let's say you max out 5 of the 10 and 0 on the rest, you still have 5,000 divided by 10,000, and so you're still utilizing 50%. When talking about credit score, it's not limited to credit cards, but you have your personal lines of credit, auto loans, mortgages, maybe some type of medical bill that you're financing, etc., etc. But using credit cards for more of that simplification of explanation. Credit card utilization is the most important part of the credit score. But when someone starts out and has no credit, usually they're not given that much credit. For example, when I started off in college and I got my first card at the age of 18, I had a limit of $500. And the point of this explanation is that if I were to spend, let's say on books, $300-400, that would be basically 60 to 80% of your total credit line slash limit, aka my utilization, would be 60 to 80%. But if you prepay your cards, aka you swipe and let's say you pay your card off before the statement ends, that total that you spent on your card never posts officially. And so what that means is, let's say if I had that 500 limit, and this is a real example, so I spent 300-400 and then I paid off early before the statement closes. So when the statement date comes and the statement comes to me, the statement balance would be 0 because I've already prepaid in advance. And so after the fact, when it's reported to the credit bureaus, my balance, aka my utilization, would be 0% versus 60 to 80% if I did nothing. And even if I'm not paying interest, for example, on any of my expenditure, the point is your credit score isn't gonna do better because it's still reporting 60 to 80% of your total limit that's reported to the bureaus, which is gonna affect you and your score. Moving on, you got payment history. It's pretty straightforward, but if you're not at 100%, you're not gonna be excellent. And so you got 100% for excellent, then it goes 99, 98, 97, and when you're below 97, you're in that very poor area. And just to put it in context with the numbers, if you have a year, you have 12 months. And let's say, for this example, you have one credit card. If you miss even one payment in those 12 months, mathematically, you're going to miss your payments 8% plus of the time. And so, all in all, you're at 91 point whatever percent that is. And so, the point of that, you're in that very poor area. And similar to credit card utilization, payment history is a huge part of what comprises of your credit score. The benefit in the long term, now let's say you have 10 credit cards and let's just say you have credit for a year. Now you're talking about 12 months and 10 cards, so 120 payments. And so now if you miss one payment of those 120 total payments you would have made, it's going to make your payment history percentage go down less than 1%, and you'd still be in that 99% region. But of course, just don't do it. Moving on, you got derogatory marks. I'll put the definition up on screen. Overall, if you have 0 derogatory marks, you're excellent. If you have 4 or more, you're in that very poor region. And it's a huge part of your credit score, similar to utilization and payment history. And let me go through an example to bring the point home. For example, if my utilization, and let's say I have one credit card and $10,000 limit, if I spend 9,000 of that, my utilization is 90%. Now, let's just say that the bill comes and I have a minimum payment of $100 And naturally, if I don't pay in full, I'll hit interest. But for the sake of example, my payment is $100 and it's due at the end of the month. And let's say I forgot to pay. Now I'm going to miss a payment there, my utilization is high, and let's fast forward and say I never pay off the card altogether, it's going to go to collections. And there you go, that's my derogatory mark. I want to extend this example by now saying I have 4 credit cards instead of the 1 from the previous example. And so instead of just missing 1 payment and 1 card going to collections, immediately you're going to get 4, and if they're reported to the bureau, you're going to get 4 derogatory marks. Utilization, payment history, and derogatory marks are all heavily weighted towards your credit score. But the following 3 also have weightage and definitely play a part in your credit score. It may not be high, it could be medium or low, but the point is having all 6 of these make the beautiful story to get you that 850 is what's important here. And so moving on, we have age of credit history. For example, if you have 1 card and you've had it for 2 years, then your age of credit is 2. And let's assume you have no other lines of credit, just that 1 credit card. Now, let's say you have 2 credit cards and you got them at the same time and you've had them for 2 years. Now, your age of credit is 2 plus 2 divided by your number of accounts. And so it's going to be an average of 2 again. Now, let's say you have 10 cards. But for example, let's say you got 1 card 10 years ago, and just for the sake of example, you got all of these 9 others in this year, 10 years later. And so how that math would work out is literally it's age of credit for 10 years for card 1, and it's going to be 0 for all of these 9. So your numerator would be 10. And you're dividing it by the number of accounts. And so if you're doing 10 divided by 10, even though you have 10 years of history on that 1 card, your average age of credit is going to go all the way to 1 year. Given how age of credit history is related to time, there's no real way to artificially bump it up. At the same time, you can definitely avoid some pitfalls that some folks make. For example, just like the example we discussed, let's say you're trying to go for a mortgage and you open 10 credit cards here. Now, if you do that right now, your credit score will drop in the short term. And the rate you're going to get approved for, it's all going to be reflected back onto you based on your credit score. And so naturally, you're not talking about a sign-up bonus of $200, $500, whatever it may be. We're talking about hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars of savings by having a better credit score. So now we have the last 2 factors of what comprises of the overall credit score. And they're your total number of accounts as well as number of credit inquiries. And so they have a low impact in terms of the overall score, but when we break it down logically, it'll make sense of why. For example, let's take a far-fetched example, but it'll bring the point home that much more. So if someone has 100 credit cards, what really matters? It's not that that person has 100 credit cards, but the fact is, are they paying on time, aka payment history? Are they not maxing them out, aka credit card utilization? Do they have any items in collection that we should know about, aka your derogatory marks? And derogatory marks stay on your profile in terms of your credit score and credit report for 7 years. So when you talk about age of credit being excellent for 9+ years, it kind of relates to that when you think about it from a mathematical perspective. And so the point is, when you talk about the number of credit inquiries, the number of credit inquiries on your report, it stays on there for 2 years. And so after 2 years, it's gone. So someone could have 100 credit cards, but still have 0 inquiries. And so with 9+ inquiries being very poor, why that matters is it looks like credit-seeking behavior, and not that that should be bad, but for whatever reason, however the credit score is made, I get it, it's looked at unfavorably, basically. Credit inquiries have low impact, and so whenever someone says, oh my gosh, you shouldn't run your credit, or oh, I don't want to run my credit, it's going to affect my score, usually that all comes from hurting your score in the short term, and so naturally it has that low impact, but after you get approved and then all these other factors, like your history, utilization, all the other factors after inquiring, that's what's more important. Yes, asking has a short-term negative benefit, but in the long term, without actually asking, you won't be able to hit the other parts that comprise of your overall credit score. So there you have it, the 6 parts that comprise of your credit score, and if you hone them, you can not only increase your credit score in the short term, but the long term as well, and maintain it and get to that 850. But with that, thank you so much for coming to the end. Like, share, subscribe, you know how it is. Comment below, happy to answer any questions. But with that, I'll cue the outro. Peace.